And welcome everyone into the WECT digital studio. I'm John Evans, along with First Alert meteorologist Eric Davis, giving you an update now on the winter storm expected to impact the Carolinas, Virginia, and a lot of the states along the Atlantic coast. And Eric, as we talked in our earlier newscast today, we're still 48 hours away from starting to feel the first effects of this, but you got some updates on models that you guys get every couple of hours, and it's giving you a little better idea of what we might see.
Yeah, we one thing we can probably say we're not going to see is probably snow. I do not think this is a setup for snow across southeastern North Carolina. We're mainly at this point determining if we're going to see primarily rain or freezing rain. I think in southeastern North Carolina, of course, that's a best case or worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Because freezing rain would be just devastating if you got a lot of freezing rain, because that would be, freezing rain accumulating on power lines,
Right.
on tree branches, and obviously travel would just be absolutely treacherous if that were to play out.
Yeah, and we do know that the Department of Transportation is expected to brief reporters tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. We'll be back in here tomorrow to stream that news briefing. We've heard from most of the school systems across southeastern North Carolina monitoring and are expected to make some kind of an announcement at some. But Eric, again, we're live on the WECT News Facebook page. We're live on the YouTube channel. We're also live on WECT.com. If you have any questions that you would like to ask Eric as we kind of go through, take a deeper dive into maps and the potentials. Obviously, we can't find out right now what it's going to be like in Burgaw or Elizabethtown or Whiteville or anything like that.
Point, right.
But it may give us a sense of being able to answer when we might know more, or is it going to be worse to the north or to the west? Those general things we might be able to give a little bit better handle on.
Yes, I think we can do that.
But specifics now, should I travel here, should I travel there, may not be something we can answer. Tomorrow, better idea. Friday, better idea. Right. And so as we go along, we're going to continue to brief you here. But let's get to some of your graphics, Eric, because I know you've been talking and really looking at a couple of different models and really being really honest and open with folks about the two models that you've been looking at for this entire system.
Yeah, and I think and there's some others too that we're looking at, but yeah, I think we're primarily looking either a setup where we're going to be primarily seeing ice and freezing rain in southeastern North Carolina, a very bad scenario, or if we get enough warm air, if the cold air doesn't really get in here like we think, it may be primarily rain for southeastern North Carolina. Obviously, that we're looking for, but the freezing rain scenario is definitely the table at this point. Let's talk about some impacts that we may see. And remember, we have 3 first alert weather days now: Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I think the precipitation could start as early as Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening. Sunday being the primary day, we could talk about moisture, either rain or freezing rain, for much of the day on Sunday, and it may even continue into the first part of Monday morning. Obviously, if worst case scenario plays out, you're going to be talking about very hazardous regional travel. And even if southeastern North Carolina doesn't get the worst, areas to our north almost surely will get the worst of the freezing rain. And it does look like now maybe primarily freezing rain and sleet for much of North Carolina. It looks like a lot of the snow is going to be more up into Virginia. That's where you could be talking about a foot or more of snow as you get up into places like Richmond, maybe Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I spoke to my, I've got 2 daughters who live in Richmond. My wife has gone up there because our oldest daughter is getting ready to have a child.
Oh, yeah.
But they were telling me that the forecast there is calling for between like 8 and 11 inches, but there's a possibility they might get some ice as well.
Yeah.
So to the north of us is really going to be travel is going to be difficult for this weekend.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you do not want to even think about going to places like Raleigh or Charlotte or it's just going to be, I'm afraid those are where some of the biggest ice totals are going to be.
So we might get the best of all this. Again, best being the least amount of impacts, but certainly not going to see what they're seeing in the northern parts of North Carolina and in Virginia.
Right. And again, the critical question at this point is how much cold air are we going to get? Right. Are we really going to get that Arctic air? Now we know, and I probably should have included this graphic at the surface, we're going to be getting that cold Arctic air. We know above the surface, temperatures will be quite warm. That's why we're not really factoring snow in at this point.
Right.
The snow would melt at the layers above, and then at the surface, you'd have the freezing temperatures. Or if we're lucky, maybe wouldn't have the freezing temperatures, then you would be talking about all rain. in that potential scenario.
Okay, let's get back to your graphics. You mentioned Richmond. I just wanted to bring you an update because I had actually, within the past hour, heard of our sister station up there in Richmond, talking about
Yeah.
what they're looking at in the next 48 or 72
Right,
hours.
right, yeah. Travel across the Carolinas, you just don't want to do it this weekend. Even if somehow southeastern North Carolina escapes the worst of it, other areas are definitely not going to be escaping this danger. And the other thing too, we got to talk about, John, is even once the system moves out of the area, we're talking about days of frigid temperatures moving in. So this is not going away anytime soon. Even here in Wilmington, I think we're looking at 18 degrees on Tuesday morning, highs in the 30s on Tuesday. It is going to be brutally cold. And again, this is going to be a long-lasting storm again too. Even if we somehow escape the worst of it, other parts of the state, other parts of North and South Carolina certainly are not going to be escaping the worst of this potential storm. All right, let's talk about this. This is the model comparison that we've been talking about. On the left is the American model, and I got to tell you, these models have just dug in. I mean, you normally we're not seeing that at this point. The American model, and there's some other models, it's not just the American model, but there's some other models that we look at are depicting a scenario where we have a lot of pink over southeastern North Carolina. It would be a storm track that is closer to the coast. That scenario pulls more cold air in at the surface, and that sets us up for major icing here in southeast North Carolina. We are not, let me emphasize, we are not in the clear. You still need to prepare as if major icing is possible in southeastern North Carolina. Now, it's not a guarantee it's going to happen,
Right.
but it remains a possibility.
A lot of folks right now, Eric, and I want to pause. I don't mean to interrupt you, but a lot of folks right now are asking about specific areas: Charlotte, Southport, Supply, Elizabethtown, Whiteville. You kind of, if you look at these models, you can get a sense of where your area is, looking at Wilmington, looking at some of the other towns.
Yeah.
So you see, based on the American model, the GFS on the left, it looks, this model right now is looking like more of the icy mixture, the pink,
Right.
whereas the model on your right, that's the model for the Great Britain, right?
The European computer
European
model.
model. That's looks like it's more rain across our part. So you see the differences, and like Eric just said, these models aren't really agreeing on a whole heck of a lot when it comes to our part of North Carolina.
Right. The critical question is cold air at the surface. Are we going to get enough cold air at the surface that we're going to get that big ice and the big freezing rain event? It's certainly a possibility, not a guarantee it's going to happen, but we have to prepare as if it is going to happen. If this plays out, you get a lot of freezing rain, which is a bad scenario. I can't emphasize enough. If we get a quarter inch up to a half inch of ice, that could be absolutely devastating. And other parts of North and South Carolina clearly are going to be seeing that. Even if we don't get the big power outages, somebody probably is going to see that in North and South Carolina.
Yeah, there is some agreement there. Raleigh, Greensboro area, they're both in the pink in the European, a lot of areas in the pink in the American model, even with some snow above it in Virginia. So you're seeing it, and you expect, you've been watching these maps now for decades, you expect as we get closer, they'll kind of come into more of the alignment.
Yeah, I think is, and also we're waiting on what we call some high resolution data. We don't have that yet. We should start to get more of that as we start to get into tonight and tomorrow. And hopefully at that point, we'll start to see a little more. For instance, this is how big this storm is. Remember, this storm is going to be affecting a large area all the way from Texas up through the Carolinas, mid-Atlantic. This is a huge storm. The hurricane hunters, they have hurricane hunter planes right now out in the West Coast. They're going to model the low pressure area. And
so they use hurricane hunters even on winter storms like this?
in this case, they're going to, because it's going to be affecting such a large area, and this will help to give us some more accurate model data, hopefully, and maybe we'll start to see these models come to a little more of agreement here, maybe later tonight and into tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll have a better sense. By the way, I also want to point out, generally, the closer you are to the coast, the more likely you are to see less ice. The closer you are to I-95, that's probably the best way to think of it. Generally, the more ice you're going, the better chance you're going to have of seeing significant icing.
Okay, let's get back to your graphics. I know you wanted to talk about more about what you were digging deeper into here.
Yeah, and of course, the model on the left is the icy scenario, and then, of course, the European computer model. A lot of times we think the European computer model tends to be the best model, but there's a lot of models that don't necessarily agree with this scenario, so I want to point that out, too. That's why we're not 100% confident which scenario is going to play out. We're just going to have to wait and see which one plays out, but right now we can't say. And again, here's another comparison. This is the American model. Again, Look at that. This is the latest run. This is it's painting a half inch of ice in Wilmington. That would be devastating. So we cannot take worst case scenario off the table. Look at the European computer model, 3/100ths of an inch of ice. That would be just be a little bit of a glaze. That wouldn't be a huge problem.
Yeah.
So I mean, we do not have this system nailed down by any stretch. Of course, even the European computer model is painting big time icing just to our north into the Fayetteville area, maybe Raleigh, Charlotte, places like that.
Even in the Whiteville area, some northern Pender County, you're seeing a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
Again, getting more questions here. One question: what about driving Sunday morning? Again, we can't talk a lot about specifics, but as you talked in our newscast today, Saturday night into Sunday, and then Sunday as the day goes on into Monday. Sunday's going to be the day we're really not going to want to do a whole heck of a lot of travel, correct?
Yes, especially if the icy scenario plays out, because I mean it looks like we're either going to get best case scenario or worst case scenario, and not much in between. The only in between would maybe a little bit of light icing.
Yeah.
I guess that would be the in between scenario. But either we're going to get heavy icing or mostly rain.
Yeah. So
and wide range of outcomes with
at this point in time, 48 hours away, almost 72 hours in some instances. That's going to be one of the times it's going to be really dicey compared to what we're seeing. Don't know at this point in time, but that's one of those times that you really have to make sure that you limit your travel if we do get that worst case scenario. Okay, Eric.
And remember, if we get the big icing event, I got to reemphasize this. There's going to be normally a lot of times in southeast North Carolina, we warm right back up after a winter storm. We're not warming up after this storm.
Yeah.
It's going to be extremely cold. So if we get the big icing scenario, it's going to stick around for a while.
That happened last year after we got the snowstorm. There was a couple of days where it stayed cold, and that's why some of the roads were slippery, because it didn't have a chance to melt immediately.
Right.
And we dealt with 2 or 3 days of slippery roads, and that could play into the fact here if, again, we get more of the rain and freezing rain in the coastal areas.
Exactly. So
Okay.
and here's the look at the timing here. Now, again, notice green is unlikely, yellow possible, yellow and red is likely on this map. Notice we have taken pretty much snow out of the equation. We do not think we're southeast North Carolina. So it comes down to rain and freezing rain. And the freezing rain window opens up probably, say, Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, continues Saturday night. So, again, this is a long duration event. Again, there's a lot of moisture with this system. Sunday night. I got to tell you, even the first part of Monday, not completely out of the realm of possible. We're trying to be optimistic, but you get the general sense that this is going to be a long-lasting event. We just hope it's mostly rain here in southeastern North Carolina. That's the only thing that's going to spare us from the worst.
And again, a question here. Joe wants to know, it appears the Euro model is more accurate historically than the American. Is that something you would agree with?
Historically, that is true, but as I said, there are some other models that agree with the American model, and we just don't have that high-resolution modeling.
Right.
Like I said, modeling that Baja low tonight with the hurricane hunters, I think that's going to may go a long way towards helping us. I would not stick in this scenario. I would not put my neck out totally with the European model, because there's a lot of models that actually are more in support of the American model's solution. That's why I'm not sticking my neck out and saying the European model is it.
And that's
not yet, at least.
That's what plays into all this. Timing, where things go, where the cold goes. If everything easy,
I just look at the European model, and that's my forecast every day. No, and that's why I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Back to your graphics.
Yeah. So again, rain. Again, we're going to see precipitation. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Obviously, the slippery travel window that's going to open up Saturday, and again Saturday night, Sunday night probably the worst, but even into Monday. So this is going to be a long. If we really get the big freezing rain totals, or even some freezing rain, this is going to be a long-lasting event. And power disruptions. You got to. I mean, we talk about this a lot during hurricane preparations. You plan for power outages. If we start getting quarter-inch, half-inch of ice building up on power lines, even if it doesn't happen in Wilmington, it could happen in Whiteville or Elizabethtown. We could be talking about days without power. And remember, it's not just our localized area that's going to be seeing power outages. We could be talking about thousands of miles. This is why this winter storm is so dangerous. We could be talking about thousands of miles of people without power and power. I mean, lots of infrastructure rebuild potential with this system.
Yep. And you were talking about it, it stretches from, by the time it gets here, it'll stretch from the Midwest all the way through us and up toward the Northeast. So it's a huge system.
Huge, and a huge area that's going to have this problem with freezing rain and sleet. So, I mean, just can't emphasize enough that you really need to, you almost need to think of this as a hurricane. You need to be prepared. I mean, that's really what you need to do.
And this is a graphic I really like, because you said this when we met last week, how things were changing, and this is changing. Snow pretty much off the table right now. You were talking earlier.
Yeah, I think snow is mostly off the table at this point. Again, I get maybe a small chance you get a little bit, maybe initially Saturday, but this is primarily going to be ice or rain. That's purely what we're saying at this point. I might, maybe based on the European computer model, maybe a little bit for Wilmington, but again, ice is not off the table. You have to prepare for the ice. It is. I mean, until we can sound the all clear on the ice, you got to continue your preparations, and we are not sounding the all clear at this point on the ice.
And Amy on the Facebook Live said 2013 ice storm, power out for a week.
Oh yeah.
The silence outside, she said, was falling branches was scary. We were when we didn't have power for the better part of a week with that ice storm, and it hit.
Yeah. And think about how cold it's going to be too. I mean, and so we're going to be dealing with power out. If you depend on electricity as your power source, I mean, this could be a tough situation.
Okay, let's get back to the GFS scenario here, the American scenario.
Again, this is the American scenario. This is the colder model. Again, I want to point that blue line out. That's the freezing line. Watch that very closely here. This is 8 o'clock Saturday evening. You see precipitation has begun in southeastern North Carolina. Notice it is pink. That's the freezing rain that we're talking about. Now watch this as we continue through much of the day on Sunday. Notice pink stays over southeastern North Carolina for the most part. So we don't really warm up. We keep the freezing temperatures here hours. So this would allow the ice to really build up over southeastern North Carolina. Notice even into Sunday afternoon, still below freezing across much of the area. This is the scenario we cannot take off the table. Just can't emphasize enough how dangerous this scenario is, and it is not off the table at this point.
Okay, and the Euro model?
And the Euro model, of course, is more what we want to see. Again, we may still see a little bit of ice here initially, but watch the freezing line with the European computer model. Notice it's going to shift more towards the northwest and more of an icy problem for maybe central North Carolina, maybe places like Charlotte. We turn over to rain here as we head into Sunday, and primarily what we see is rain. We might see a little bit of glazing, a little bit of icing, but this would be a much better outcome for us here in southeastern North Carolina. Possible, but not the guaranteed outcome at this point.
And the forecast benchmarks here you're talking about?
I want to remind you
that we're getting into that 1 to 3 days here pretty soon.
We're about to, but we're still technically in the 3 to 5 days. So we're tracking timing. We're still too early to talk about specifics. Again, start getting some of the high resolution modeling, even little things like modeling that Baja low. It's going to really give a better sense of what's going on. We don't have that data yet, and that's why you're still seeing a big spread in the computer models until we can resolve all of that.
And again, Saturday, the highs getting into the maybe high 30s.
Yeah.
Sunday, rain, not a lot of sunshine to even warm the ground at this point.
No, it's going to rain. Sunday's going to be pretty much all day precipitation. It could even linger into Monday. And notice we have highs and lows are going to be really tricky with this. It's going to depend on how the Arctic air acts. But notice we have times where temperatures are below freezing. We have times where temperatures are above freezing. Until we can figure out if we have more time above freezing, more time below freezing, we're not going to know exactly whether we're facing primarily ice or primarily rain, but we have first alert weather days. We know this for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And
again, I want to get to Adam's question here. Will the Department of Transportation be salting the roadways in rural Brunswick County? His only vehicle, he says, is a moped. We're going to hear from the T, Adam, tomorrow. We're expecting to hear from them about 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. And like we did last week when we were talking about the potential for some wintry weather, we will ask the questions on what the plans are. From what we understand, brining of the roads will begin fairly soon. And then what they will do will obviously, I would imagine, be impacted on what the forecast looks like.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it all comes down to this massive amount of Arctic air. Again, this is some brutally cold air. Is it gonna stop just to our north, or is it going to actually get in here at the surface? And that's going to make all the difference. And it's a question we just can't answer 100% right now.
One question. This is interesting. The weather Thursday and Friday be in the 60s. Is that going to impact the storm at all, or is that anything to the storm before it hits?
I mean, it might help a little bit initially in terms of, but remember, the precipitation will be fairly heavy, so I don't think it's going to have a huge impact.
Okay, good deal. All right. Power outages were being asked. Ethan asking about power outages. At this point, the threat, it has to be at least brought up,
Yeah.
depending on how much ice is hit
Yeah.
and where the ice hits
Yeah,
the worst.
like I said, we're almost in a weird scenario here. Either the Arctic air gets here and we get a lot of ice and freezing rain, or the Arctic air doesn't get here and it's primarily rain. So it's going to be a very dramatic. Are we going to get worst case scenario, or are we going to get best case scenario? Like I said, maybe a little bit of a chance that we just get a little bit of glazing. But I mean, I really think we're either going to see a lot of icing if the Arctic air gets here, or it's going to be mostly rain and not as many big problems.
Okay, well, what we wanted to do here was we wanted to bring you an idea of what the First Alert Weather Team is looking at. The possibilities exist as we on a Wednesday night at 7:50 p.m. These guys don't know what's going to happen. Really, nobody knows what's going to happen. But as we continue to get more of the models, they'll continue to bring that forecast into better shape, into better, that looking glass that they have and the instincts that they have from being here for so long. And tomorrow it'll be a little bit more confident. Friday, a little more confidence. And as we join you with regular updates, we'll have a better idea how we can answer all of these questions in different
I think
areas.
it's really a question. I mean, you need to prepare. It's like we say this with tropical weather: prepare for the worst, hope for that European scenario plays out.
Yeah.
But prepare as if we're going to see a significant ice storm. That's what I would say.
Okay, we are going to be back tonight on WECT News at 10 on Fox Wilmington, then on WECT News at 11 on WECT. We're going to continue. Our First Alert Weather Team is monitoring all of the models all of the time. And again, DOT will make some media briefings tomorrow at 11 in the morning. We'll get a better idea what they're planning, along with what our meteorologist will kind of keep you up to date and let you know what the forecast looks like and what the preparation should be in southeastern North Carolina, and specifically in your home as well.
That's right.
All right. For Eric Davis, I'm John Evans. Thanks so much for joining us. We will see you again on WECT News tonight at 10 o'clock. Thanks, everybody.